right, so some of our listeners might have heard us say this before, which is that we say one of the ways to financial success in your future is date night.
Date night.
And we've said that on multiple occasions and had clients or whoever we're talking to look at us and be like, what are you talking about? So we thought we would just pause, take an episode in the midst of our regular programming where we like to dive into all sorts of financial topics and just say, kind of unpack what we mean by that. Now, disclaimer, we're going to talk about the importance of date night. I just want to acknowledge to all of our listeners that we realize that we have many clients that we have walked alongside divorce. It's never easy. And we realize that sometimes it just becomes unavoidable. So this episode is for those that are either in a relationship or looking ahead to a relationship and just looking at the importance and the impact of viewing the investment in your relationship over time. So, but let's kick this off by just sharing a little bit about us.
Yeah, that was so well said. The comment that, one of the biggest securities in your marriage is date night. When we think about financial stuff, we didn't make that up. So other people came up with that, but I think it's a really true comment. There's so many busy professionals, busy business owners that we know that, they think about the person that they are living their life together with, they're building their life together with. And, you drift apart, things happen, people change. And it takes conscious effort to change together. It takes conscious efforts. I think it's just a great time. I'm so excited to talk about this, especially with you. Here we go. So for many of us, many who already know us, we've been married for 17 years.
Just celebrated 17 years.
Yeah,
we had to do the math.
Yeah, working on number 18. Here we go. We have 4 wonderful kiddos. A myriad of ages, but basically 12 to 6 is kind of our spread. So fairly close together.
So we're in a really sweet season, I would say, from a parenting perspective, because we're not hitting all of the complexity that happens during the teenage years, but we have moved swiftly out of diapers and nap time. I mean, I still take naps, but that's for another podcast. We're in a sweet parenting season. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's a season too where I get home or you get home and somebody says, "Daddy," and comes running, which is so wonderful to be greeted every day like that. And that won't always happen, I'm sure. But it's a really sweet season, I think, for both of us. When we get home, the kids are just jazzed to see us. They're jazzed to whoever the one that's been away to come in. So it's a great moment. But for us, early in our marriage, I'm not sure even where it was, we made a comment together, maybe it was even as we were getting married, acknowledging that each other is going to change. In fact, we need to change. If you were still the 23-year-old, 24-year-old when we got married, that'd be a problem, right? You can't still be a 24-year-old and acting like a 24-year-old. You need to grow and change and develop. And me as well. I need to grow and change and develop.
And I remember having this conversation as a young 20-year-old, and we were making this huge decision to get married. And I knew it was going to have an impact on the rest of my life. And yet there were other categories in my life that I just hadn't figured out yet. And maybe I hadn't figured out, I think at that point, I had graduated from my undergraduate degree. I've applied probably for 3 different graduate schools before I finally programs over my lifetime, right? So at that time I didn't know what graduate school I wanted to do. I wasn't exactly certain of what I quote unquote wanted to do when I grew up. There were so many facets of my life that I knew were still evolving and changing. And yet I was making this decision to marry someone, to tether myself with someone for the rest of my life. So I do remember that specific moment making that request. Hey, I still need space in this relationship to change and to evolve.
Right. And the commitment I think we made to each other in that moment is one that we individually will keep growing and changing and, exploring all the things that God has made us, that we are, that we're discovering who we are, that we're, shaping who we are. But in the midst of that we would choose and give each other the grace and the space to do that, but also choose to do it together in the sense that, like, I know you're changing and I want to encourage your growth. I want to do whatever I can to spur you on to maximize what you can do. And some of that is very practical, space to go to grad school, right? We both had seasons in our marriage where we've supported the other while the other was going through grad school. That's a very tangible one. There's also, the freedom to say, "Oh, I thought you really liked that." And someone to say, "Well, I guess I did, but I don't think I do anymore."
Yeah, maybe my taste changed a little bit,
do this or do that. And I think that having that freedom in our marriage and an open dialogue has been so valuable and served us so well. And it's turned from you're changing, oh, I'm changing, to really being excited about it and saying, wow, I see that you're trying this. And some of the vernacular we've used a bunch of things over the years, but we went through executive coaching with a group called Novus Global for our business. Such a phenomenal group, but they touch on your personal as well. And some of the vernacular that we've used from the language is that some things are commitments. I'm doing this. I need you to hold me accountable. If you see me not doing this, wow, we need to talk about it. Other things are just experiments to say, I'm just going to try this.
Yeah.
No judgment. It might look weird. I'm probably going to be awkward as I do this. I'm just going to try it and run with me on this, play with me a little bit, be a little experimental, give me a little extra grace. And I don't even know if I like it, but I just want to try it. And that's, I think, been really useful for us to tell each other, hey, I'm doing something and it's an experiment. Just roll with it. We'll see what happens. Others to say, no, this is me now. I'm locked in. This is what I'm doing, and I need you to support me in this. And
Right.
it's been very useful, I think, in our marriage.
Well, even in our financial lives, right? As we were early on melding our financial lives, the way that I looked at finances and the way that you looked at finances, and we see this in our clients when we're meeting with a couple all the time. We bear the biases of the financial lives that we lived before we entered into that relationship. And now kind of melding those two opinions and perspectives together. We've told the story before on the podcast about our first aha moment walking into Home Depot to pick out a simple item that we needed for our home. I automatically grabbed for the most expensive item. You automatically grabbed for the least expensive item. And we explained our reasoning, and there was logic truly behind both decisions. But it was at that moment that we realized there was a divide, right? There was going to be a difference of opinion. And so even now, we laugh, but in a more stressful moment or a moment where we might not be seeing eye to eye or we have a different perspective, we'll oftentimes just say to each other, better together.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't infer that it's easier together. We just say like, hey, we made this commitment to do this together. And so we have to accept that the differences, the gap or the disagreement is actually an opportunity to understand where the other person is coming from. We don't get it perfect. We don't get it right all the time. But having that vernacular where we look at each other and say, better together, we can sometimes laugh, take a little bit of a break from the conversation if necessary, and come back to it to say, hey, we made this commitment, and for whatever reason, even if it's not obvious right now to us right now, it's better that we do this together.
And I think even that comment, better together, I think it highlighted initially when we, for those who know us, we initially dated. We're kind of long distance. We'd known each other for years. When we first started dating, we were long distance, living in different cities. And then when we moved into the same city, we struggled with like the simple things, like going out to eat. Like, hey, where do you want to grab lunch? Oh, anywhere. Okay, great. Let's grab pizza. Well, not pizza. It's one of those.
I know. I really always had a hidden agenda. Why would he take me there?
Yeah, that's right. And so I think because that we realized it was so much easier just to pick what each of us wanted and eat there. So much easier to eat alone and do what you wanted. However, it was so much better for us to eat together and so much more enjoyable. And that kind of poured over into the rest of life, of it's better to do it together. It's harder. It takes more time. It's more complicated. It's not easy, but man, is it better.
Well, and I think about those experiences where we were, even when we were doing long distance dating, how that has impacted where we are now. Right? We were literally living in different parts of the world at different moments during our relationship, experiencing very different political and social communities and diversity that maybe we hadn't known as well as young people, and talking through that, like what we were noticing about ourselves, our own identity, what we were noticing about the values that we find in diverse communities, the places that we got to go, the adventures that we got to have, how that has informed our relationship at this point. And just to bring us really present, I know we've got 17 years worth of fun history that we would love to share, but really for our listeners, this really is a moment in our marriage where our kids have all now just started school. Our youngest started kindergarten this year. That has freed up more time during the day when they're in school. We 2 years ago started working together. And so even though most of our lives have been spent together, we even made a lot of these work choices together. What's new for us is actually working side by side. And I think it's kind of funny if I reflect on when my first day in this office, we were in the midst of still reconstructing the current office that I have now and redesigning it. And so literally for the first, couple months, I bounced around between offices, but I would often find myself in Jeremiah's office. So even though we were saying, hey, we're so excited to work together, all of a sudden we were spending nearly every minute of our day together, right across the desk. And even though this is the person I want to do life with, there are moments in your day where you need a little space.
Just need a minute. Yeah.
We just jumped right into the deep
Right.
end.
Right. That's right. Well, we talk to a lot of clients, and a number will say, "Oh, I couldn't imagine working with my spouse." And I think this isn't an
Mm-hmm.
aspiration or anything that works for a lot of folks, or they even want to. But in our situation, it relates into our marriage. It relates into our financial security, our financial future, and it just happens that we get to work together. And I think it highlighted for us all the more that we need to stay on top of our communication. Because if I'm going to see you for 20 hours a day or whatever
Mm-hmm.
that is, we can't be on different pages. We can't be you're carrying around that strife. It's not that we can just go to the office. I'll see you when I get back. Like, you're there too, and you're home, and
Right.
and so for us it became kind of a highlight to say, hey, we need to really work on our communication. We need to continue to grow together, continue to support each other. And coming up to 17 years, there was a good moment. We've mentioned before, but Chad Willardson is another advisor in the area. He's a great guy. You can find him on LinkedIn. We'll probably put a link to what he's doing. But he and his wife went out and they went through 25 questions on a date night of just good kind of annual check-in. So I think they just used it as a check-in. We're like, hey, let's do that. Let's have a date night for our anniversary. Let's run through these 25 questions and just see what's changed. And some
Right.
of these questions are surface level. Some are fairly deep. Like, one of them said, when did you feel the most loved by me this year? It was a
Yeah.
moment to really remember the year, think about it, see what landed, what didn't really land with you, what really didn't land with me. And for me, hearing you speak through that, I was like, listen, oh, those are the moments where she felt love, not just that I was trying to love her, but she actually felt it and received that. And it was great. I think it was a great moment for us to kind of work through and highlight some of
Yeah.
these moments from our year.
Just to wind back a little bit, like, because we're now working together, and so for any of our listeners that are also in a similar situation where you work with your spouse, we are learning as we go, and there's been some tips and tricks that we've gained from other people and mentors in our lives that we're trying to implement. So date night prior to working together looked a little bit different. And a date night as we're working together, we still wanted to commit to that time together, which we strive for twice a month. Sometimes it's more frequent than that if we're lucky, but twice a month to get out of the house, right? That has always been the same because it's really helpful for us just to be out of the to-dos and the tasks and the reminders of everything else that fills our life. And so to go out someplace or to do something together is really enjoyable. And so we make that commitment again to date night and the consistency. And that takes some preparation, right? Like setting up childcare, blocking out that time in our schedule, protecting that time in our schedule. But before working together, it was really easy to have conversation about topics that weren't a part of our workday. Once we started working together, we came into date night, and inevitably it was like, hey, I meant to talk to you about this. Hey, this was something that really bothered me at work. Or, hey, what do you think about this? And we found that time to like ideate and debrief with each other about work is still really vital, but we don't necessarily want that to seep directly into date night. And so you talked specifically about our anniversary. Our anniversary happens to fall right after Christmas. So we have typically done not a lot for our anniversary because you're sort of reeling from all the busyness of the holiday season. But this year, thank you to Grandma, we were able to get away. Close to us here in Southern California is Orange County. It's beautiful. We both love the coast. And when Chad Willardson had done this post, it was funny because both of us actually took note of it and didn't tell the other person. And so we spent the afternoon together. We did set some boundaries around like, hey, we're not going to talk about work from this point forward. And we laughed and we were silly together. And then we got to date night. We had booked a reservation ahead of time. We got to dress up and go out to dinner. And we both had these 25 questions in front of us. And I think what I appreciated the most about Chad's post was the reminder of intentionality as an investment in your relationship. That really, to be intentional with your conversation. It's so easy to say, wow, it's been a great year. Wow, look at where we've come, to be reflective. That's easy. But some of these questions were really poignant and merited, some thought to say, when did you feel the most love for me this year? When did you feel the most loved by me this year? And how have we supported each other's goals? And where can we offer more encouragement? So, they weren't meant to just merit kind of like a vanilla sort of answer. It led us, and I mean, mind you, we didn't get through all 25 questions.
Yeah,
We
that's right.
should have started earlier in the day.
We should have started. But I think that the beauty is even that question you just asked, like it means I need to know your goals, right? I need to know what
Mhm.
your goals are. We need to have discussed those, express those, and then how have I actually proactively supported them? That's some, like you said, it's some great intentionality throughout the year of saying, hey, I know what you're about this year. I know what you're working on. And I really want to, think creatively. How can I support and spur you on? There's a great book. It's kind of a spiritual book, but it talks about kind of heaven and looking forward to eternity, and saying like, how are you preparing your spouse for eternity? Like, what are you doing in their spiritual side? And some of these questions touched on physical goals, work goals, mental goals, even the spiritual side. And I think it's really good for us to kind of go through all those different items to say, how are we supporting each other? What is each other's vision? And even this wasn't a vision setting meeting, but it was a good moment that for me at least to know like, hey, we need to be in tune with what each other's goals are and actively supporting them. And it was great to reflect and even to look forward to the next year and be like, oh, I could do this better, or you could do that better, and to be able to share that, and make those requests
Yeah.
as
I
needed.
mean, we didn't tell each other like, "Hey, you could do this better."
You
But
could do this. Maybe that's the follow up to date night. We need the checklist for date night. We need the
Yeah. Yeah. But inevitably, right? Like we're going to discover gaps. And again, going back to the beginning, like we're all evolving. And the point that we want to make here about why date night is so important is that people come to talk to us, and we can certainly talk all day and every day about your investment portfolio, stocks, bonds, your asset allocation, your risk and return. Like we're all for it. But more and more so, the role of a financial advisor is people seeking wise counsel, advice, coaching, an ally, someone who will ask them the hard questions, someone will talk to them holistically about the ways that they are investing themselves, not just their finances, but in such a way that they can achieve what it is that they're headed towards. Sometimes it's even discovering what it is that they're headed towards. But like many, when you made that commitment to tether yourself to another person for the rest of your life, that was probably made before a lot of the other parts of your life had been figured out or known to you. And so learning how to do that alongside someone else, you need space, right, to grow and to evolve. And that's naturally going to create gaps, moments when I tried this experiment and it was terrible, and I'm not good at this. I don't like this. I thought I was, or I thought I was this type of person, right? Like allowing that freedom is just another type of investment,
Yeah.
truly.
Well, and even with that, to say I committed to this and I didn't support you the way I said I would. I failed in this commitment, and to have grace and love, but also to move forward together. Like all of those are really, really useful. And I think to even in a very practical sense, and I think listeners probably already know this intuitively, but in America specifically, like divorce is one of the biggest destroyers of long-term wealth. You think of a household that's doing well and it's thriving, and then there's a divorce in the midst of it. At best case, it just divides things in half, and each side needs to start over. At worst case, there's actual destruction in the sense that homes need to be sold when it's not a good market. Investments need to be liquidated when that wasn't the ideal plan, that wasn't the long-term plan. So there's some very tangible for people who are growing and building and progressing, that if this relationship isn't able to continue and to flourish in ways that add value to your life, it actually could also detract meaningfully from your future. And like you said at the beginning, like divorce happens, relationships fall apart for all sorts of reasons, but there's some of those reasons that perhaps are preventable. And to invest in yourself and your future and your spouse through things like date night, and it's one that we found is a really good discipline, really good practice, just to keep us connected in the midst of changing lives, right? Very quickly changing lives. And for you and I, with working together, raising kids together, all those things, we could talk about so many things all day and never get to the deeper pieces. It's great
Right.
practice for us to take a moment to get to those deeper conversations.
I fully expect 17 years from now, if we're still recording these things called podcasts or radio programs, or however we're going to be communicating 17 years from now, right, for us to look back in this moment and say, oh, we were such babies.
Yeah,
We
we were
thought
so
we had
cute in
so
that
much
moment. We thought we had it figured
figured
out.
out. And another thing that I think you say often is like, don't compare your present to someone else's future. Is that how you
Yeah.
say? Right? Like stay in your lane, right? We're all moving through this life at our own pace and we're all learning and figuring things out at our own pace. And that's one of the things, honestly, I love the most about the work that we do is we get an insight into people's lives exactly where they are, but then we get to walk with them through multiple seasons and we learn from our clients. I'm so inspired by so many of them. We walk through challenging circumstances that they have overcome. We walk through twists and turns. Like life is going to serve up curveballs, right? And so you need to have a game plan in place and you need to have a default mechanism. So, hey, it's January, folks. It's time to set those New Year's resolutions. If you don't have date nights on your calendar, they don't have to be in the evening. They could be during the day. Think creatively, but make it a commitment to pursue your spouse and make that intention because it is truly a long-term benefit and an investment that will serve not only your financial future, but your family's future as well.
That's right. That's so well said. So well said. Cool. Well, I look forward to more of these conversations. I like your comment, 17 years from now, when we look back, we'll be in some virtual reality land or something. But I think there's a good dose of humility in the midst of that, right? We're figuring this out. Like we every day are looking to grow together, to explore together, to experience, this world and this life, but not thinking that we have it all figured out. Because you're right, tomorrow could be a curveball. So we'll hold on to each other and keep walking together.
I'm just really looking forward to date night. So we heard about a good restaurant, new one that's close to us. So I think we've got it already planned. So we'll report back on social media how it goes.
That's right. We take all the recommendations. Whenever I have people have recommendations, we'll take them. We'll try them out.
Yeah. Well, for any of our listeners who are in a similar situation to us or just exploring what their financial future looks like and have some questions, come in and meet with us. We'd be happy to sit down with you and just eager to learn more about your story. Thanks for following along. You can find us at tricordadvisors.com. And have a great day. Thanks. We have a few more things to let you know about before we go. Podcast reviews really help us to serve more people and get this information into the hands of the people who need it. Please leave us a review. Even if it's not 5 stars, we welcome the feedback.
And we invite you to let us know what topics you would like to hear more about or what would benefit the people in your life who you're closest to. We have more resources online. Those resources are designed to help you share this great information easily with people in your life. To access those resources, please visit tricordadvisors.com.
Often we hear from clients that they wish they had talked to us sooner. If that's you, we'd be thrilled to see how financial planning can benefit your life. Email us at contact@tricordadvisors.com or simply click on the link in the show notes.
This show was produced by Graham Gardner at Model FA. Find out more about how to create a podcast for your financial planning business by visiting modelfa.com. We love creating content that's useful, resourceful, and maybe even a little entertaining. We want to make this mega universe of financial topics and advice applicable and helpful to your life.
Remember, at Tricord Advisors, we are your future's best ally.